IVM.
Welcome to Absolutely Right. I'm your host Aditi Surana. Our guest today is Udhay Padmanabhan, an entrepreneur, a design thought leader, and a global strategic design director for Wipro's design vertical called Design It. Udhay has worked across a broad spectrum, be it startups, very large enterprises, leading product firms, academia, and government agencies alike. And he strongly believes in design being a true change maker.
I think it is a way of thinking. It is a way of life, probably, to really look at it. So in design thinking, what we do is we don't look at problems as problems. We look at problem statements into something that we call as opportunity spaces. It's all reframing. A lot of self-help gurus, new age gurus, science and research, everything tells the same thing. It's about that constant conversation that you have with yourself. And you can have that only when you're aware of what's happening with you, unattached.
In today's episode, we will discuss what did Udhay learn from his precarious entrepreneurial journey. What did he do to apply design thinking to recover from his chronic illness? And finally, what keeps this multi-passionate innovator designer inspired? We all learn a great deal from those who show relentless courage to play their game, make their share of mistakes, and show up no matter what. Udhay's unwavering thirst to solve problems and create a lasting impact is commendable. He will join us on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep or lose weight or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.
I'm so excited to have Udhay as our guest today. Udhay, I have been following your work for some time right now. And every time I look at, the design, human impact kind of conversation that people have, people talk about it, but the results do not match. And what is fascinating is your journey as an entrepreneur, your journey as an executive, your journey as this constant learning individual who has been questioning norms and fighting norms in a way that is fascinating. So please tell me, before we begin and start discussing design, I want to know more about your entrepreneurial journey or your venture. Where did you start that and what was the idea behind it?
So I think I've always had this entrepreneurial bent in mind from a very early young age without even knowing that there was a word called entrepreneurship, if you will. Okay. I've been doing odds and ends, not just from a commercial or a transactional angle, but yeah, I used to do a lot of things, create things and exchange things and, I think, but I always felt that it's always nice to have a dream and chase it too. But then, classics, typical, middle class family, you have an upbringing, you get a good academics and good is relative again. You again, find a job and all that. But I think I was lucky to have parents who supported every whims and fancy of mine, given that both of them do not come from the background that, I've been making a living for the last 23 years and counting. So I think I'm blessed. They gave me everything that I asked for. And I got plugged into the industry at a very early age. I have dabbled with all forms of design. Right. Probably, I think it took a significant amount of time even before I said, okay, I've been part of many, many successful companies. So one of the things is almost all of the companies that I had worked for have gone public, have been acquired. One or two of them actually went bust also. But I think most of them got acquired. Most of them got, M&As. A lot of interesting stuff happened. I think 10, 12 years into it, or probably a little more, suddenly this, buzz happened, right? Me and another friend of mine was like, we have done so many things together. We've been part of such successful stories. Why don't we do something on our own? And what to do, what not to do was a big question mark. But yeah, that set the ball in motion. And like I keep saying, I used to jot down a lot of ideas from the get-go, whether it gets, to see the light at the end of the tunnel or not. I have this, maybe that's my idea journal, if you will. Sure. And then I think everything clicked. I think me and another very close friend of mine, we've worked together in multiple places. We took a deep dive. We did a startup for transactional security. And then, completely bootstrapped.
Which year was it when you...
This was 2000. We've been boiling this idea and percolating this, brewing this idea for quite a while from 2005, 2006. But I think we actually went and took the deep dive in end 2007, early 2008.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I I think sometimes the best of things come in pairs. I was actually part of two startups at the same time, and I think we did quite well on both. But the technology one actually took a lot of time. It was completely bootstrapped. I think all the money, name, frame, gory that we had went into it. And then we had given ourselves some time. I mean, if you don't scale, and we pulled the wire, and we actually went to that extent. We actually pulled the wire.
Company.
Yeah. I think we did everything, and we had like 3 different pilot engagements. We had to hire that next team, put them on a plane.
Right.
One was in India, and a couple of them was in the US. So we ran out of money. So it was a catch-22 situation. But yeah, then, I mean, being for all purposes of being practical, we did have alternate avenues of going for a soft loan or going through the bank, and then all this song and dance in India, right? Give me a collateral, give me this, give me that, and all that. So we didn't want to really do that, but we said we were way ahead of our times. We said something or the other will happen. If not for us, maybe the next generation will end up enjoying some fruits of our labor.
So I'm going to pause you here. So from idea to really start a business, and as you keep mentioning, it was a company of 2 people, where
Yes.
investors and other people kept on questioning your ability to expand and grow. And tell us about what were the challenges when 2 people just believe in an idea and jump in. What exactly goes through, what all happens? People, our listeners might be considering starting a business, especially in this scenario where jobs are under threat and people are struggling. So what things people should keep in mind? What could be your suggestions for somebody who's considering that?
Very loaded question, but very interesting question. I mean, tomes have been written.
Right.
And then there's always, I mean, these tomes can be, completely segmented into those who have achieved big time stuff. Sure. You have $1 billion, backing you, and whatever you say is actually carved in stone.
Yes.
And then for every success story, you have at least 99, which is actually in the startup graveyard.
And I think important to hear from somebody who has gone through the grind and has seen the side of the story.
Yeah, I think that's where the learning is. I wouldn't say humility, because again, I've been hearing and I've been seeing in the last few years that the word humility also has been given a lot of bashing up, saying, I would rephrase and simply say being grounded. Okay. Being knowing what is possible, what is doable, and what is like, wishy-washy types. But yeah, I think for us, it's not that the 2 of us just said, let's go and change the world. Yes, in hindsight, probably we also had that bias, if you will. Mm-hmm. But we come from strong technology and design backgrounds, and having built real enterprise class products and platforms, which were bought and sold eventually. And we also had our share of success, not that we are denying that. Then we said we are ready. We know that, I won't say call it a game, again, negative connotation. We know to play the sport, right, if you will.
Right.
Then how do you qualify and quantify an idea? I mean, you could do so many things.
Exactly.
So we figured out that banking, as in those days, was really emerging in India. And we have, I mean, not many people knew that back then, we had the largest debit card market and second largest credit card market in the planet. I'm talking 2007, 2008. Not many people knew this.
Okay.
And because banking was highly regulated in India, most of the top banks were state-run. Banks were insanely rich. But we were on the cusp of moving to the next level of technology and all that.
To make it simpler and to understand, so any transaction that we do today has to go through some security process. So you almost foresee the requirement of that security process when the transaction will become like this. Like today, everything for us is online payment. We figure our ways around it. So you guys, both of you thought about it back in 2007 and thought, how can we make it secure?
Yes. So the current day OTPs and the second factor thing that you do was very nascent back then. Okay. And then we figured out it was there in existence. We didn't discover that. We didn't invent that, but we figured out more robust ways of securing transactions.
Right.
Yeah. So I think when we started talking to banks, everybody liked us. I mean, we've had audiences with, the chairmen of banks, the CEOs of banks. We had a network, somehow we connected and all of that. But net, no bank worth its salt was willing to risk its entire core banking system. Basis 2 guys sitting in Bangalore. So that was a very, very profound learning for us. But yeah, we had signed up with a lot of technology partners. Interestingly, I think top 3 of the top 5 core banking systems those days, back in the day, were actually, from India.
Wow.
So we had those leeways, we had all of that stuff, but unfortunately, it was a double whammy. We could neither convince banks to take a risk on us. On the other side, it was chicken and egg. Almost most of the VC firms back here were like, get a pilot, just get one proof of concept, then I'll give you money. Our thing was, I don't need money once I do a pilot because my pilot is going to be paid. But we persisted. I think we had that blind faith and we kept tunneling on.
Right.
burning the money that we had, and we eventually got 3 pilot offers. And that's when we completely went out of steam. In fact, we had a team willing to, take the deep dive with us, to go without salary for 6 months, 8 months, and everybody was ready.
That's
But
amazing.
but something happened. I mean, maybe in hindsight, maybe whatever happened for good. Probably, maybe we didn't build a $1 billion company, but we built a lot of stuff. And
So there I was looking at your handwriting,
all
and
right,
when I was going through some handwriting strokes to understand how will I try and understand the mind of someone who is very creative, very solution oriented, what could be the probable insights or challenges I can see here. So one of the things that stood out for me when I looked at your writing, one was your very, very strong willpower to see through a process. Now, what do I mean by willpower? So when you set out for a project, when you set out for an idea, you put your entire heart and soul into the process, which matters to you a lot. And if you cannot do it, you don't feel happy about it. You don't understand only doing practical, required. That's not living on the edge for you. So every choice that you have made that you are proud of is done when you are on the edge to do it. And that's how you live life, that's how you enjoy life. Now, that is very interesting because as an entrepreneur, when you have a passionate idea that you drive, that could become an emotional journey. So, my question to you is, how did you deal with your emotions while going through kind of challenges that you did? What was the other side that people are unaware of?
okay. So yeah, great question. I think I did undergo the churns almost on a daily basis. Initially, it was all glorious. It was in Eastman color. We're sitting on some earth, earth shattering,
Right.
humanity changing stuff. And I think the first couple of years was great. And slowly, we were sitting on some real big thing. Everybody validated. I think somewhere down the line, when we were ready to let the cat out of the bag, that's when the reality with capital R hit us hard. Maybe in retrospect, we could have, prepared ourselves better, but you don't know what's coming till you start walking, taking the less untrodden path, right? So value proposition is all about not just putting your skin in the game, but also putting money in the game. That tells you how compelling the value proposition is and to what extent you can go. You're willing to risk it all. I tell people that it looks very glamorous. All the good stories look very glamorous, but you will actually end up working 2 times, 3 times the work that you would probably work if you were pursuing a good or a great career, if you will, with any of the brands that you basically love being associated with. Ground realities are different. You have to be in it for the long haul. Friends will come, friends will go. Family comes, family goes. I know of broken families. I've heard a lot of stories.
Entrepreneurs going through personal journeys because
Yes.
they work through.
Yes. So it's a very great learning experience, but it's not for all. So
it's not for all. It's very important for people to understand because many times the whole idea of passion can be blinding. And when we think about only the results, which would be great in the future, people forget that it requires this grit and this commitment to go through the grind.
Right.
So we've heard about the glorious parts. Which were the vulnerable parts? I keep asking this question to every guest, especially to highlight that success comes with its own challenges. And no matter how much you grow or what level you reach in your growth, there is always this part of you that is vulnerable, that is operating from its own challenges. So was it something that was really moving, or how did you deal with your failures on the way?
Very interesting question. I think one of your lighthouses or north stars is north star, if you will, that keeps you grounded is the commitment that you have, in your social life, be it friends or family, or if you're married, you have a spouse, you have kids, you have extended family, you are responsible for them. One of the things, I mean, you can call it vulnerable or what. One of the things I kept telling myself was, no matter what risks I take, no matter what corners I cut, I will never ever allow the lifestyle that my family was used to, suffer. What I learned was, if you chase money, you won't get anything. But if you chase success, money invariably follows. So
this line, Udhay, is so important.
Yeah.
So you actually chase the idea that you believe in, the money will eventually follow.
Yes, and I think you should have that intuition or self-awareness, if you will, and the people call it headstrongness, but I call it being precise about what you want and what you don't want in life, to make course corrections. Maybe this idea is great. Maybe 10 years down the line. Maybe the market is small. Maybe, it is your hobby and passion and not an entrepreneurial commercial engagement. There are a lot many vectors that will come, and there is no set formula for this. Every idea, I mean, be it your friendly, laundry guy who comes to your street and, irons your clothes, and he also is an entrepreneur. Maybe, people who started billion-dollar unicorns and whatnot are also entrepreneurs. But I think it is a very unique experience. But you need to have a huge heart, and you need to have a very larger depth and breadth of bravery, but measured bravery. Design, again, dovetailing into my, bread, if not butter. Design is like surgery, right? I mean,
Right.
And the day you stop wielding your scalpel, you lose touch. It's craft.
That's
So
true. And a
yeah,
practicing one. So you
yes.
have to be in the process of thinking like that. True.
Absolutely. And like I said, if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll probably keep getting what you're getting. But if you do something really, really, really through passion, I think the rest of them, it's like the analogy is, think of a Rubik's cube that automatically sorts itself and all the 6 sides are done. You just focus on things that you do. Yeah, I mean, but a lot many people maybe who are hearing this may think that, okay, it's easier said than done, but trust me, I've been there many times, and I think it happens. You have to believe in magic. I mean, if you don't believe, it's not magic anyway. So, my reason to get back to work is not because I really, really need a paycheck. I'll be lying if I don't need a paycheck. But I think it is more about honing the craft and learning a lot of stuff. And irrespective of 23 years, I was never part of a studio as an insider. So one of the core reasons that fascinated me in joining my current employer was that, I want to be part and parcel of a studio that does cutting edge, amazing work, impactful work. And I think I was lucky. Again, I think it was synchronicity at work. And then, I got connected and here I am. So yeah, things happen. You just have to let go.
Employer is this massive giant called Wipro, and you have done some amazing work across the globe to create employee experience. We're going to speak about this on the other side of the break. So do tune in and figure out, learn more about Uday's journey on this topic and how he actually used design thinking or designing a human experience to create better lives for more than 1/8. How many people is your organization?
Okay, my parent is like Wipro. Yes, Wipro is about 180,000 people and counting. I think our wing called DesignIt, which is a strategic design agency, was acquired by Wipro in 2015, and we are about 550 people spread across 17 cities in the globe.
That's amazing. We will know more about this on the other side of this short break.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Intel, for coming back to us. We love our sponsors. If you'd like to be one of them, do reach out. So really, really cool week on the network this week, right? Started off with a bang. Abhijit Ganguly was on Cyrus Says. Funny comedian. I think you guys will enjoy that. We had Dimant Parekh on Advertising is Dead. Dimant's the founder of Better India. Govindraj Athiraj is also on Uncle Please Sit this week. That's a really fascinating show which they talk about fake news. On The Habit Coach, there was a crossover event with Aditi Surana from Absolutely Right. I think you definitely enjoyed that. And last but not least, definitely a show I'd love you all to check out. We have a new show called This Round Is On Me. It's hosted by Gauri Devi Dayal. If you remember, Gauri and I worked on a show together called The Kolaba Cartel a while ago. Fun show. If you haven't checked that out, do check that out. But this is a show where she's talking to a lot of different people in the food space. Her first guest is Harsh Mariwala, legend in his own time. I think you will really, really enjoy that show. With that, let me get you back to your show.
So we are speaking with Udhay, and in today's conversation, we are learning about his journey as an entrepreneur, as a designer, and how he recreated his life, restarted at some very, very interesting point. Welcome back, Udhay.
Thanks, Aditi.
So in this part of our conversation, let's talk about graphology, and I have your handwriting in front of me. What questions would you like me to answer based on your writing? Is there something that you're thinking about right now, or overall thought about your personality? I can assess your personality, thereby I can speak about different personality aspects based on the formation of your handwriting strokes.
Yeah, great. I think I'm actually more curious. I mean, it is one of those, I'm very curious about learning things, trying to figure out what things are, but definitely that curiosity index is exponential right now because I didn't know what's going to come out. But yeah, I think you don't do future projections. So that was Yeah, I know, but yeah, I just tried my luck. So, but I know that you don't do that. But I think, yeah, I do know of graphology. I do know of wonderful things that, yeah, people accomplish. And I also know that there's an equal amount of people, basically assayers and naysayers. But yeah, but I'm neither, but I'm curious. So when you're curious, anything and everything works, right? So my question to you would be like, I think you have analyzed it, and what are the top 3 words that come to your mind? I mean, I'm simplifying this. I will tell you why I'm asking you this way, because at some point in time, I'll tell you that's exactly what we do day in and day out to solve problems at scale. And it's as simple as that. I mean, design thinking may sound very glamorous and all of that. It is very powerful, but I think, you've gone through whatever you asked me to write. And yeah, honestly, I thought maybe I'll copy something, a favorite stance or a poem or all that, but your instructions clearly said it has to be spontaneous. Yeah. So I wrote.
Yes.
I wrote whatever I wrote after we spoke. So yeah, I think they say it's bad manners to answer a question with a question, but I think I can use the liberty to ask you back on, what are the 3 things that came up to your mind when you saw my doodle, my scribble or whatever. Yeah.
So the first thing that came to my mind is your long-term thinking. So many times you have ideas which are so far-fetched for you, for other people, that there are moments where you only don't believe them. You wonder whether they will come true or not. But the vision is so clear and the logic behind it is extremely, possible in your mind, extremely, for you, there is no question. You just know that this is my process and I will figure this out. Second thing that stood out for me is your strong willpower, which I already spoke about. The third thing, which most people who have worked with you would agree with me, that many times you start the journey, you're very, very excited about it, you solve those problems 50%, and you are interested in finding the intellectual answer, intellectual solution. Once that is done, when it comes to mundane activities, you're not very keen to follow through. These are my top 3.
Okay. Almost precise. I think on the third one, yeah, I wouldn't call it mundane, but I think once a certain thing gets done, I think I was always accused of being a perfectionist, and it took me a lot of time to figure out what do people mean by being a perfectionist. Does it mean that striving to do the best thing is perfectionist, or
I would not call you a perfectionist, to be very honest.
Yeah.
I would say that you constantly strive excellence. So perfectionism is a lot to do with not taking action because you really want to get that best shot and to get the perfect answer. I don't think you operate from that space, but yes, people do understand or misunderstand perfectionism for somebody who strives excellence. In your case, you cannot put out something that you don't believe in completely. So the conviction to do something with 100% authenticity matters to you, and if you're not convinced, it shows in your work, on your face, and then you are not available, you're not there. So if you can't do the job the way you would like it, or you can believe and take onus for, you might as well not do it, as your philosophy.
Yes. I think during my early stages, yeah, I used to be like my way or the highway types. But I think as you progress and you learn more things and you have life experiences, you also try to adapt and adopt. Both are slightly different things. But I think, fundamentally, I believe in not just doing what is right, but doing right things and doing what is right are 2 different things. I strive to do something that really gives the value that we promise and makes people happy. And people come back to you. I mean, right? So that's something that I strive, and I also believe very strongly in fundamentals. Mm-hmm. If the building blocks are not there, if your fundamentals are not right, I don't think you can ever, make anything concrete. So I think that is something that has always been with me in anything that I do, and maybe that's one of the things.
And those fundamental blocks are so clear that most people struggle to understand. So you do suffer the problem that people misunderstand you first, and when they get to know you, when they get to understand where you're coming from, then they are sold pretty much for a very long time, if I may say, lifetimes in that case. But that struggle, that initial struggle of not understanding why are you so fixated, why are you so stubborn about these fundamental blocks, can become a challenge, according to me. Your way of working with people or dealing with teams.
I think maybe true. I think that's why I believe in showing them the big picture. Not everybody will get it right the first time. At the same time, I call it reaching the middle ground, because otherwise it's a deadlock.
Right.
And I've learned it over many years. It's not that I had this gift of reading the room from the get go and saying things that matter and getting things that done. But yeah, it has been a journey. I'm still learning because not everybody is bound to look at things that from your perspective or your lens or your vantage point.
Also, one thing I'm going to say right now, which only a few people are aware of, and I'm saying this because it's important to the next part of my question to you. Like, as a person, you are highly emotional. So, like you are driven by logic as a person, but you're highly emotional at the same time. And what do I mean by that? There's a conflict between emotional journeys and logical journeys that goes on, and it pulls you in both directions. So the internal battle, the internal hassle, if I may say, is only available to you. Other people are not aware of it. So what they see is this person trying to be really clear and at times stubborn on his point, but they're not aware of the emotional engagement that you have with them or with the work or with the project. Now, I'm aware of the journey that you went through physically when you went through the surgery. So I would like to talk about this. Like, how was it for you to recreate yourself after the surgery? And tell us about what was that experience of almost walking into a dark part of the physical health.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, brilliant question. And thanks for giving me the opportunity because, like you said, there is this side of me that not many people know about it. But yeah, I mean, since you're asking, I thought maybe someday, maybe somebody listens to this and he or she thinks that I'm not the only one who went through this or who I'm going through it. And here is a guy who's gone through it. I think that's some solace for them, right?
Yeah,
I think I was this happy-go-lucky guy. Everything was fine. Typical, fairy tale, if you will. I wouldn't be exaggerating. Everything was fine. But yeah, I always used to joke about all this, statements about life begins here, life begins at 30, 40, and, blah, blah, blah. But I think whoever said life begins at 40 actually is absolutely true. At least I will vote for that person.
And literally in your case.
Yes. And it is based on a true story. And that true story is mine. I think in 2016, prior to 2016, maybe late 2010 and early 2000, the second decade of 2000s, right? I used to get a lot of acidity in terms of suddenly I'll feel that I'll feel pukish and then I'll literally throw up for 30-40 times a day, literally, initially I said, okay, maybe too much of coffee when you do 10-12 cappuccinos and you light up at the drop of a minute. I think acidity does happen, but yeah, I somehow managed, and at some point in time, I really felt that my body is trying to tell me something, and I eventually went and met a doctor. I met a guy who actually underwent the same things that I underwent, and he's like a pioneer today. And his take was that maybe you have this thing called acid reflux. Let's get you tested. And I underwent a battery of tests. Long story short, it turned out that I did not have acid reflux, and I went on with my life. Over the next 3-4 years, these attacks did happen, but I think I had made peace with the fact. And I think every 6 months once or once in 2-3 quarters, I used to get these attacks and I used to manage. And I was like, mastery types. Okay, I will do this stuff. But then 2016 was literally horrendous, where I used to get this issues almost every 10 days, 12 days, 15 days. So the body was giving me some signals and the body was telling me something. And I was like, probably, okay, let me wait it out. And there was the first time in my life where I had to literally say that, take me to a hospital, literally. And I get rushed to the ER and then, the rest is history. They put me under a battery of tests and all of that. I didn't know what was happening. And then finally, I remember it was a vivid evening. A very elderly gentleman I was in the ICU, walks into my room and he says, I'm XYZ. Looks like you have one of the rarest of rare conditions and we need to talk about it, but not today. Nothing to worry, not life-threatening, but let's talk tomorrow morning. And that was like a huge suspense. So the next morning happens, he meets me and he says, you know what, you have some stones in your pancreas. I was like, what? Do people ever get stones in their pancreas? I mean, it so happens that, yeah, people do, but it's very rare.
Okay.
And I got myself admitted and my doctor simply comes into the room and says, you're going to get operated tomorrow. I'm like, are you telling me or asking me? You're like simply like, there's nothing to ask. I think you should get it done. Like I said, otherwise you got to live with this whole issue coming up every second week or third week. And it can be literally, it'll be a handicap. So again, the design thinker in me was like, okay, how long is this surgery going to what does it look like? He's like, at max 2.5, 3 hours. So my logic, my design thinking, so much for my design thinking logic or all the creative thinking. How much can happen in 3 hours, right? We all know when you have a family that's infested with doctors and surgeons and, some of the best in the industry, you also tend to think you know a lot. But yeah, I was wrong. He said 3 hours and I said, okay, what can go wrong in 3 hours? And I agreed, signed the consent form. I was wheeled. And then it was an amazing story. It turns out that I was on the table for 7.5 hours. They did like 4 procedures in one go. And then when I was wheeled back to the ICU, my BP spiked up to 252, magic number. So they say it's a medical miracle, and family considers that I went to the deep end of the tunnel, if you will, and come back. And then the recuperation was a very profound experience. Doesn't matter who you are, what you've accomplished, name, fame, money, glory, all of that thing matters. But there comes a time in your life when none of this matters. You actually have to introspect. And I was like, tubed across. I mean, I was tubed all over the place. I am going on record probably for the first time. Some of my families may get shocked about it, but hey, you have to confess. I used to smoke like 40, 50 cigarettes a day for donkey's years. Okay. And I think after this introspection, I figured out that I was still in one of the best hospitals being taken care of by some of the best doctors in this. But the suffering that my family underwent was not worth it at all. So the least I could do is not get into some things that will bring them back to this kind of turmoil. And I simply said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think that's one of the, if somebody asked me what was the greatest achievement in life, probably I'll add this to my list that,
that you managed to recover and stop smoking one fine day.
I mean, smoking seems to be an end result, but I think the mind is supremely capable of, exponential things only if you apply it, right?
Then we constantly hear these concepts and people talk about how did they deal with this? What exactly happened? Now, if somebody might not be going through a health situation like this, but if they're feeling that they're at the end of the tunnel, or it could be financial, it could be, in a relationship, whatever it could be. Can you share some of your learnings while rediscovering yourself? What exactly happened and how can someone learn from your I'm sure you would have, knowing you, and also I know you a little bit personally, so I would say that you would have broken it into some solution formation. So what were your learnings that we can learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is where the essence of life intersects with this beautiful thing called design thinking. It's a way of thinking. It just happens that designers are known for doing this, advertently or inadvertently, and now it has become a very grounded science.
Which also means that you have a problem, and when you want to find a solution, you don't go and you don't approach it in any haphazard manner. You actually walk in with a system in your mind, and you approach it with all possible things that you can consider. If I'm simplifying it correctly.
Yes. I think you have answered your question, but I'll still accentuate. You're absolutely right. I think in our world, I think like today, design thinking, for all the bouquets and brickbats that it gets, I think it is a way of thinking. It is a way of life, probably, to really look at it. I think it all begins with reframing. I mean, do you look at something as half full or half empty types, right? I mean, I wouldn't use this, famous, pessimist and optimist, but I think it's perspective. It's being about how self-aware are you about what you're saying. So in design thinking, what we do is we don't look at problems as problems. We acknowledge problems, of course. I mean, because if there's no problem, then there is no solution that needs to be discovered, right? But we rephrase, we change everything, we reframe. We look at problem statements into something that we call as opportunity spaces. For example, now a guy who's like pumping in like, let's say 100 cigarettes a day, he's looking at potential, holes in the lung and literally holes in the place where lungs are. And that's the problem, right? I mean, the problem, but if you really look at it, reframing, what can I do to go back to a state where my lungs are as healthy as how I was before I was when I was a kid? Or it's all reframing. A lot of self-help gurus, new age gurus, science and, research, everything tells the same thing. It's about that constant conversation that you have with yourself. And you can have that only when you're aware of what's happening with you, unattached. Right. So in design thinking, we take any problem and we break it down into, atomic parts. We call it first principles. You can take anything and actually you can break it down into its moving parts. And then if you look at it, and then that's where this whole thing of, outside in view, inside out perspective, thinking outside of the box. Some people say there's no box. Yeah, relatively true. And then you connect the dots backwards. You look at adjacencies. Maybe a healthcare solution can actually change an agri-tech business. maybe, I mean, history is peppered with a lot of correlations that you don't get to see before it clicks. So I think that is where I see a parallel between what I do for a living or what all we designers actually do for a living, which can be lifted and shifted and actually applied to life. It's okay. And life is not, I mean, trust me, it is not going to be a bed of roses. You will be walking on eggshells. How do you walk on eggshells without cracking them any further is what design thinking probably allows you to do it. And we call it how might we. How might we change X and transform X into Y? And then there are no good answers, bad answers, wrong answers, but it makes you think, it makes you unload a lot of stuff that is trapped between your 2 ears. Okay. And then you put pencil to paper or you put pen to whiteboard, some magic happens. And that cannot be articulated unless you experience for yourself.
How do you do that? How do you do that in design thinking? Because the problems are so overwhelming and people cannot see beyond the problem. So how do you do that?
So one of the most profound techniques that we use is called HMWs. How might we? You actually convert a problem statement into a probable solution stack. Simple. How might we change this whole notion of, people resuming back to work in workplaces, given that they come out of the new normal? Now, do we have an absolute answer today? We don't know, but a lot of people are working towards it. Do we get back to business as usual, like the pre-March shutdown days? Maybe yes, maybe no, but we don't know, right? So rather than looking at it as a problem, we look at potential mitigation areas, and then, that is what we call it as how might we. This is where a lot of things get unloaded from minds, and it is a group effort. I mean, you can solve your own problems individually, but the power of design thinking from solving world problems and societal problems is basically the power of the crowd. No right answers, no wrong answers.
So multiple people think about this together and you brainstorm, basically what you're saying.
Yes, because perspectives matter, and you don't know, and business history is peppered with this also. You don't need any more proof that some of the best life-changing, earth-shattering discoveries and inventions have come from corners that you never even existed. I mean, you look at Fortune 500, every single company is peppered with such anecdotes. Yeah, right from the invention of Post-it to how the glue was an accidental discovery. So I think first is acknowledging that there are problems. Second is believing that problems can be solved, and then the third one, the most important, is acting upon it. Otherwise, it's okay. You can identify a problem. You can say that there are 6 ways in which it could be solved, but it's not my problem to solve.
So the fourth point after taking action, you have to make sure that the incentives are kept in mind so that people keep on taking action.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's very, very interesting. But the last question.
Sure.
What is one single quote or one single statement that has been your companion through your journeys, which are very, very dramatic and very drastic for most people to even fathom?
Okay. It's not one, it's a bunch of points that I lead life in day in and day out. One is it's okay to make mistakes.
Okay. Very important one.
Yes. And the corollary, a continuation of that is you will not have answers to everything, because most of the times you don't even know the question.
True.
Number 3, I think this whole theory of fitting in is good to a certain extent. Yeah, that's why we are a civilized society and all of that. But the more you lead life towards wanting to conform to what others think, say, feel, and do about you, you might as well not do anything. You just take orders and execute and be a dependable person rather than a dynamic person. Last but not the least, stay grounded. Have this unquenchable thirst, if you will, to know more things, not to prove to somebody else, but to prove to yourself or to absorb things. The power of knowledge is that it cannot be stolen from you, right?
That's so true. That's so true.
And problems are problems, and the final culmination of all of that I've learned and I live that day in and day out is this too shall pass. Everything is transient in life, good, bad, ugly. The minute you detach and you start looking at it very neutrally, I think everything can be solved.
So if somebody is going through a phase because of the lockdown or now the unlocking process and all the struggles, I think all these things that you just said would be really, really handy for them to think about. Thank you so much for breaking this whole idea of never giving up in your own story and always finding solutions, no matter how tough it looks, how complicated it is, but figuring it out nevertheless. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I would take this opportunity to, thank your team that is also, being with you and, through the thick and thin of it. And my kudos to them. And I'm super happy to see this go live, and I'll share this with all my people. And let's do more of this as we proceed forward. And congrats on this wonderful initiative that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let me quote Albert Einstein here. He once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them." Makes sense, isn't it? Most people feel trapped in situations not because the problems are complex, but mainly because they use their same old inefficient ways to solve their new complex problems. We all update our WhatsApp, Facebook, our phones, even other apps regularly. How about updating, redesigning, or upgrading our problem-solving method or the way we make decisions? Let's talk about this on our Friday episode. We will break down Uday's design thinking approach and find what can we do to solve our problems in a different manner. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Absolutely Right. If you like this conversation, then please add a comment or review this podcast. Let me know what were your favorite parts of this conversation with Udhay. As always, I'm keen to know what were your key takeaways from this conversation. To know more about how I use graphology and other effective coaching tools to enhance performance for organizations as well as individuals, you can visit my website aditisurana.com or follow me on my Instagram handle @Aditi Surana. If you like this podcast, then don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are @IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have. Paisa Vaisa is brought to you by Paytm Money.
बेटा, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा, तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare. Where what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you will look them dead in the eye and go, "Uncle, please sit."
So join me, Joel,
and me, Tushar,
every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.